Welcome back to the Caring Conversations studio, live from the Care Show in Birmingham, and with our sponsors, Cornerstone Care Solutions. So we've got our next guest in. It's Nadra from NCF. Is that right? NCA? Sorry.
Vic might be a bit upset about that.
Vic's coming in a minute. I'm sorry about that. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
I'm okay.
Tired,
we're all good. It's all good. You know, sort of.
Good.
Lots of adrenaline when you're recording things in a studio.
I know,
so it's like doing a 4-hour long presentation.
Yeah.
Bit of coffee and it's all good. So do you want to just remind us what the organisation does?
So the National Care Association is the association that supports small to medium-sized providers. We've been around since 1980 and evolve in various ways, and we recently merged with the Registered Nursing Homes Association, so that makes us the biggest association that supports social care providers. And so I'm the co-chair of it, and we're working through having 2 offices all of a sudden. And also a slightly different membership, because Registered Nursing Homes was more predominantly nursing. So we're a National Care Association. We look after people with learning disabilities, older people, dementia, all that. But actually all of that is merging into one now anyway. We're all looking after a very similar client group, whichever bit of the sector you're from. I think the challenges that smaller providers face now are actually quite difficult, and that's what we keep hearing.
Yeah.
But we also hear that there are a number of care homes on the market, a good proportion. I think there were some presentations this morning that kind of were quite frightening in the number that were on the market. I wasn't in the session, but it's just sort of conversations that we've been having. But the interesting thing is we're seeing new entrants as well as established providers actually expanding their portfolios. So a provider that became a member with us with about, I think he had 14 homes at the time, has now got 44 homes.
Wow.
So the expansion is happening.
Yeah.
People are just buying.
Yeah.
homes.
Maybe there's not as many sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed people popping up that, you know, it's. I suppose there's a sector, you know, we spent a long time, as well as the press, but running ourselves down and talking about the problems. So then actually attracting new top talent like that into the sector, people who want to invest and buy, you know, and actually sitting down and talking to, say, someone like Adam Hutchinson, who owns seven homes or something like that. He's very positive and excited about the sector and has, you know, really sort of feels that it's a good investment, that it's ultimately a good business model, and that, you know, that there is space for new people to come in and new providers from that perspective.
Well, I think it is really interesting, because the one thing we do know is that social care is going to grow because there are more people living longer, which is the good news, and they're living longer with complex healthcare conditions. So there comes a time where they need care and support. So that social care sector, not only have we had to grow, but we've also had to diversify, because people want different styles of accommodation. So when you look at some of the larger providers and the sort of accommodations they're building is for a specific style of client group, and then you've got the commission-based ones, and then you've got the ma-pa businesses in the villages. So we're so diverse. We should celebrate that, actually. We should be talking up the fact that within this one sector, we have a hugely complex group of people that we support. We support more people than the NHS does. And then you look at our workforce and how our workforce has had to adapt and become upskilled. So when I came into the business in 1981, when the first home was opened, we didn't used to take people who needed actual care. They were like the Cream Tea Society. They just didn't want to live alone. There was a little bit of confusion potentially, but a lot of them had cars. They'd walk to the village. And our first home was a country manor house, so it had all the grounds. They'd walk around. So it was a very different environment. Now what we've got is we've got people coming in with quite complex and multiple healthcare conditions. And the reason they come in is because they no longer can live independently. So those people we look after in their own homes as well are actually quite complex sometimes. And I think our workforce has had to adapt to that. And the work has got more challenging, but their skills are so much greater. And then those skills are not recognised in the monetary terms. And we can have a very long conversation, which I hope you don't want to, but a long conversation about, the fair pay agreements and the employment rights bill and all of that. We're trying to devise different methodologies, but actually what we don't have at this moment in time is the stability of knowing where the next bit of money is coming from.
Yeah. So with regards to the fair pay agreement then, ever since I've been in this care sector for sort of 10 years, it's always been talked about. Are we any closer from your perspective, making progress? Obviously what would have been fair pay 10 years ago won't be anywhere near enough right now. Is there the government listening? Does it need to be mandated from the government? It probably does in some ways.
It's part of their manifesto, so they are pushing ahead with that. So we have had announcements, and there is a consultation out at the moment. So there's no doubt there will be a fair pay body, and then they will be the ones who will make the decisions. But alongside that, we've got the Casey review going on, which is looking at how social care can be fit for the future, the reformation piece. The bits of money that are being announced are not going to be sufficient as we go forward, but that's no different from when you joined the sector 10 years ago to when I joined the sector 40 years ago. The bits of money have never been quite enough. And I think that the most important thing for me at this stage is to always think through the people that are being let down are the people that need that care and support. The people that are being let down are those people who want to choose social care as a career, and they're taken away from it because actually they can earn more elsewhere. All of this is happening amid a cost of care, a cost of living exercise, which is making it much more challenging for somebody to follow a passion sometimes, because there may be a mortgage to pay, both people have to work, the challenges of childcare, all of those things. So people have to make decisions based on what they need to live.
Yeah. So it's not actually, in a lot of cases, it's not economically possible to just be a care, even if it's something you love and want to do. It's quite difficult in a lot of places in the country to actually just do that as a job. Because even a minimum wage as it is not quite enough, is it?
Well, you've got to think. I mean, first and foremost, with every human being, you have to think about your own circumstances and what you need to do. And when you hear about care workers having to go to food banks, we should, as a nation, we should be ashamed of ourselves, because the skills that they bring to that, to support the people that we actually do support. The patience, the golden thread, the compassion, the passion, all of those things should be applauded. And what we have at this moment in time is we have a huge amounts of conversation about something we all love, the NHS. It is the darling of our world, because when we need it, we want it to be there. And it has had its problems, it's had its challenges, so money goes to it on a constant basis. Whereas social care has grown, and we are taking more and more healthcare tasks, we're doing things that we would never have done 20 years ago, let alone 40 years ago. So I think we've got to be thinking very strategically that as those things are being pushed, why isn't some of that funding being pushed towards the sector as well? Why is there not more acknowledgement? Why don't we have a strategic plan for social care? Why don't we have a workforce strategy for social care? We have one for the NHS, and we hear a lot about integration and it's a subject that really, it is one that keeps me up at night. You know, what would integration look like? Because I don't think anybody has been able to define for me the benefit to social care of an integrated workforce. And by social care, I mean those people who access social care. We know that we've got around 10. I was shocked at the Labour Party conference the other day, hearing somebody talking about 10 to 12 million unpaid carers.
Sorry?
Unpaid carers.
Unpaid carers, yeah, I mean, yeah.
You know, where's all that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole. It's really quite frightening. You know, I was thinking it was 5 million.
Yeah.
You know, I was so to get those sort of statistics being thrown at you.
I mean, isn't there sort of something? There's a huge amount of people, plus a million people who are economically inactive, i.e., can't get a job because they have to look after somebody.
Absolutely.
And there's no other access. You know, a lot of people that I end up interacting with in my community have. That they can't work because their wife, husband is on the dementia journey, and that they can't leave them alone, but they can't access funding. So they sit right between that gap of like, you're not poor enough to get access to, you know, you've got too many assets, but you don't have enough to actually get in a full-time care or do those things, or you don't even know how to access that stuff.
Absolutely, and we take them out of the economy. So we're actually taking them out of a meaningful contribution to life in general. What about their mental health? You know, looking after somebody when you're not trained professionals and you're emotionally tied to them is quite a challenge, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a parent, whether it be a child. All of those things, you know, are quite challenging. And I think as a society, we don't think enough about that. We don't acknowledge that role of social care. You know, we hear the figures, 68 billion goes into the economy, you know, that social care contributes. But what we don't then do is do anything about some investment into social care. And I think, you know, the international recruitment scenarios, all of those things, we all want to have a domestic workforce. But when a provider tells me that they had 80 plus applications and not one person turned up for the job, and that is being replicated all over the country.
That's a huge amount of time and effort.
That's
gone
huge,
into that,
absolutely. And cost of recruiting, all of those, you know, to advertise, to do all of that, the time of somebody to go through those applications, and then nobody turns up for an interview.
So, something sort of slightly aside that strikes me around the sort of idea of money is that most local authorities are spending, you know, 60% plus of their budget on social care, and then spending less than 2% of their budget on investing in social care, which I think is. Are you seeing any change? Are you seeing local authorities being more interested in sort of trying to provide some provision, even if it's ultimately privately run? But there seems to be a lack of. Yeah, it's a huge part of the spending of most local authorities, right?
Well, I think we hear much more from local authorities now about the recognition of the problem, and I think that saddens me in a way, because social care shouldn't be seen as a problem; it should be seen as a solution. So if you kind of look at it and you think, we've got an NHS that can have up to 400 people in a hospital who don't need to be there, but we can't get them out of the hospital because we can't get a social care package. Investing in the social care part of it would free that up, and the NHS would be able to work, you know, and the figures of 3,000 plus for 1 week in a bed in a hospital, as opposed to £700 commissioned by a local authority, up to 1,000 in some cases. It's not rocket science. The problem we have is we have politicians who don't have the guts to do anything about it, and that's the issue, really. And I said this recently at an NHS conference, and I think might have stunned some people, but I said, you know, it's really interesting, before they come into power, when they're in opposition, there's always a solution. We will do this. We know what we're going to do. They get into government and they get amnesia.
Yeah.
And then they come out of government and then they all remember what we need to do. And I think it's shocking. It needs somebody with a vision that they are going to deliver and work hard with the sector. So if there is waste in the sector, let's find it and let's make sure that waste goes. The most important thing is the person who needs that care and support has to be at the heart of every decision anybody makes. What we have is we have systems. The systems are broken, the discharge systems, about getting people out. So then what we have is we have an A&E system that again is broken. It's not person-centred.
No.
You can go in there.
Very much not person-centred, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
It seems in a lot of ways specifically unperson-centred, doesn't it? But it's it's the interesting thing about the NHS. It's they're good at fixing you when you're broken, but they don't seem to tend to be that good at the sort of the care elements around it. And like you said, that idea of people are stuck in hospital where the right resources can't be allocated to look after that person the way that they need to be, because you don't have you've got nurses on the ward and the nurses aren't there to bring someone, have a chat with someone, bring them their life in that way. But I wonder, is it to do with the idea that your local NHS trust and the council, the local authority, there's two separate pots of money almost, and the council doesn't want to give up their money. There's that. Whereas actually, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. And is that as the changes happening?
Yeah, I think that's a fair kind of analysis in that everybody's protecting their own pot. And nobody's actually seeing the solution bit of it. And the narrative of saying we need to fix social care, it sort of rolls off the tongue. But actually social care continues to deliver. It continues to deliver on an ongoing basis.
Whether it likes it or not.
It's there. And I was picked up by somebody quite recently where I'd said, despite the issues. And he got quite he challenged me. He said, why do you use the word despite? It just delivers. And he's right, absolutely right. Because sometimes we say these things because they come out in that fashion. But actually social care has continued to deliver because of the investment of the providers that are out there, and they're putting their own money, their own necks on the line. And the SME sector, they've got their own mortgages, they've got their own loans, all of that, and the total debts that they accrue. But it's their money, and it's their necks on the line. We don't have a government that's ever thought, despite hundreds of... No, that's not right. I'm exaggerating. Despite numerous commissions, findings, nothing has ever been done. And now we've got Casey, which is really interesting. Again, we're going to have to wait for that to reform or to redesign. I don't know.
And then you've actually got to start the job of it, which is, a ongoing... decade-long transformation of a thing. But interesting. Okay, so there's a lot going on. Positive stuff, and we've talked a lot about the challenges. Anything that you're feeling really positive about in the sector at the moment?
Sorry.
Anything you're feeling really positive about in the sector?
I'm really positive about social care because I do know that we continue to deliver, and we're looking after some of the frailest people out there and making changes to people's lives. But somebody who's being looked after really well by somebody, by the social care sector, has to be applauded. And, we need to shout it more. We need to talk about how many people we look after and how we change people's lives by what we do, whether they're in learning disabilities, mental health, dementia, that smile from somebody who's got dementia, who hasn't actually shown any recognition for a long time, but because they're having their meds on time, they're eating properly, they're properly hydrated, all of those things because they're in a setting or being supported. Those are the successes. So every single day, there are millions of successes in social care, millions of them, and they're delivered by compassionate people who have a passion for social care. And I think that's the bit that we must celebrate. That's the narrative that the public needs to get. because social care only matters to you when it matters.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
I suppose the message might be, we've got this, but we need more. We need more help. We need more integration, more budget, more support. Because it's so important as stuff. I think a lot of the time, maybe it comes down to the idea that until you or a family member has to interact with the social care sector, you just don't even really think about it. You don't think that it exists until suddenly you've got to help with it creeps up and suddenly
it does. And we've got young people having strokes, we've got young onset dementia, all of these things are conditions that are coming. And we know that in a flick, you get into your car, you're driving off, somebody hits you, you suddenly are in a situation where you're going to need to be in a wheelchair. Social care is the one that will pick you up and make life worth living for you. We support families, millions and millions of people. For every single person that we look after, you've got 8 to 10 people that will be impacted by it. So when you kind of look at all of that, then you know how important it is. And that's the importance of being really positive about what social care can do, not only for an individual, but for a community, for a society, and for us to be proud of it.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Interesting. It's nice to, I think, end on the positive.
Absolutely.
I do have a final question for you.
Oh dear.
If you were a biscuit, what type of biscuit would you be?
So I would be a chocolate digestive.
Nice. I like it. Very good. Any thought? You thought about that quite hard?
I did, because it was a bit of a flick between a digestive or a chocolate digestive.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you weren't sure, and you went with chocolate in the end. Any reason why?
Yeah, I don't eat very many sweet things, but for some reason, a chocolate digestive, I can happily eat 1 or 2.
Or 3 or 4,
Oh, who knows?
Yeah. You've got a cup of tea, it's...
yeah.
Dunk it, would you dunk it in the tea or not?
Oh, I'm a real dunker.
You're a real dunker, yeah.
I am, I know.
How do you feel about if you fly too close to the sun and your biscuit falls off into your tea? You're going to eat
a spoon has to come in handy to scoop it out.
Why
not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you waste it?
Yeah, exactly. You're the first person that's agreed with me today. I'm glad that someone's on my side. Right. Well, thank you for coming in.
Welcome.
It's been great to see you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back shortly.